I'm not saying that the CCP doesn't want to unify with Taiwan, but that's, trying to do that by force is the least efficient. Taiwan has a lot of really great things going for it.
Okay.
I wish the world could see Taiwan for all its super cool and beautiful and amazing things that it has, and not see it only through the lens My name is Topher, and I am from America, and I teach English. I've been teaching English for about 8 years now.
Wow.
I found the opportunity to do it here in Taiwan. And
8 years teaching experience or in other countries?
I started my teaching career in Japan, actually. Did most of my teaching online, so one-on-one. I really just became an English teacher as a way to leave the U.S. It was an easy way to do it.
Could you give us a little bit into why you wanted to leave the U.S.?
The USA is a great place if you're a corporation, but if you're a person, it's actually much more difficult than people think. And I felt that I was really just, the phrase is spinning your wheels, that I was working, and really not getting anywhere that I wanted to be, and spending my life just working away. And I wanted to see more of the world. So, I have an adventurous spirit, and I just wasn't satisfied with the US.
Why do you leave Japan to come to Taiwan?
Well, I left Japan initially after about a year there. Don't get me wrong, I love Japan. Japan's awesome. But I left for some like family reasons initially, and I didn't return to Japan mostly because the work-life balance there is not exactly to my speed. I was actually in the USA during the pandemic. Before that, I was living in Vietnam. And Vietnam was also a great place. I was living out there working online mostly. In Vietnam, and the pandemic starts, I go back to the USA, and as soon as it was the right time for me, I decided to leave again. And initially I was thinking maybe Thailand. I would go to Thailand because I've been there a few times before and I really like Thailand. But I came across some Taiwanese YouTubers and started researching Taiwan more, and it seemed like a really great opportunity. So I decided to pursue that.
People talked about how unique and special the nature in Taiwan is.
Yeah.
And the culture. What is special or unique from where you come from?
Colorado is the state that I'm from, and it's well known for the Rocky Mountains there. That's the name of the mountain range. And the mountains there are just gorgeous. There's great camping, popular skiing, got a great craft beer scene and stuff like that. But it's if you love nature and you're in the US, you should check out Colorado.
You're a YouTuber, right?
Yes, I'm a YouTuber, new YouTuber, YouTube noob. My channel name is Uncle Topher. I started the channel for my nieces and nephews to just watch me while I'm living abroad, and that's why it's called Uncle Topher.
All right, his YouTube and Instagram links will be in the description below. You can go check him out. One of your videos, you mentioned about the invasion, the looming invasion that people are afraid of.
Well, as an American, almost anything you hear about Taiwan is in reference to the hostilities that the CCP has with Taiwan. My biggest reservation before coming to Taiwan, so I really researched that topic a lot. Basically, I came to the conclusion that an invasion is actually extremely unlikely. I'm not saying that the CCP doesn't want to unify with Taiwan, but that's, trying to do that by force is the least efficient and I think the least likely way that that will ever happen, if it ever happens, which I also doubt. China does have the world's second largest or largest military, depending on which part of the military you're talking about. The second largest Air Force, the largest Navy, if you include their Coast Guard, which most people do. And I think their standing army is also the second largest. It might be the third largest with Russia's war and all of Russia's conscriptions, I'm not sure. But I think what we have to keep in mind is that the Chinese military has basically no real world experience outside of its borders, right? The last time that China was actually deployed anywhere, I think, was in South Sudan in 2016, and that was a massive embarrassment for the Chinese forces. It was part of a UN peacekeeping force, and they did not do a great job. I mean, they were kind of set up for failure because China's military doesn't understand the intense logistical requirements of deploying your forces outside of your own borders. Before 2016, the last time that they tried to do any sort of military action was, I think, in 1979, 1978 against Vietnam, where they got beaten by a bunch of basically militia farmers with AK-47s, and they had tanks. It didn't work out for them. So yeah, they have a lot of stuff, but they haven't demonstrated how well they can use it. And the most impressive pieces of equipment that China has is reversed engineered technology or stolen technology, either from data hacks from the USA or reverse engineered from Russian equipment.
It seems like you know a lot about military stuff. Were you in the military?
Yeah, I was in the Army, in the US Army for 8 years. And I was in the invasion of Iraq. And so I was an officer during the invasion, the actual going from the Kuwait into Iraq, and through a couple of the initial battles there.
No wonder.
So it's much more expensive and much more difficult than most people realize. You know, most people's experience with the concept of invading a country or combat comes from movies or video games, and it doesn't work like that at all. It takes a very, very long time to prepare and set up all the logistical networks. I just saw that China doesn't have any of these actual networks in place. They don't have the right equipment for an actual invasion across the Strait of Taiwan. That's the huge part. It requires what's called an amphibious assault, attacking an island. And it's extremely difficult to do. It's extremely difficult to do. Taiwan is just too well guarded. And Taiwan has all the right allies. And China hasn't really made a lot of allies that it can depend on. So I just don't see it happening anytime soon. Plus, there's all the problems with China's economy currently. It's also very clear that Xi Jinping has a lot of distrust with the PLA. So just the conditions aren't there for an invasion.
What advice would you give to those who wishes or wanted to come to Taiwan but kind of skeptical or afraid?
How long has the CCP say that they're going to reunify with Taiwan? Is it almost 80 years now? Okay, if you're coming to visit Taiwan or you think Taiwan might be a good place to teach, which it is actually a great place to teach, I would definitely consider doing it. Don't worry about the mainstream media talking about how there's a likely conflict happening. It's mostly bluster. It's very overstated. And actually, when you're in Taiwan, it's almost never mentioned. People just don't talk about that here because it's like it's old news. It's like having an angry neighbor that's always shouting across the fence but doesn't actually do anything. So yeah, I think Taiwan is an amazing destination to visit. I would highly recommend coming. It's hot though, so if you're not used to heat, you might want to come in the early spring and the winter. So
okay.
I'd worry more about the heat than I would about the PLA.
Living in America and in Taiwan and other Asian countries, how would you compare the medical sector?
So it's basically night and day. America's healthcare system is horrible. It's terrible. It's extraordinarily expensive. You need to get insurance, which for me that would cost me at least $500 US a month. if I was getting insurance in the U.S. And if I needed to do anything, like if I needed to go to the doctor, it still requires a very expensive down payment. So even though I'm spending $500 a month on insurance, if I go to the doctor for a specific problem, it could still cost me like $2,000 up front.
Wow.
It's common that people go into personal bankruptcy because of healthcare costs. And things like dental care aren't covered in health insurance, and eye care. It's really crazy messed up system. Now, I'm actually a cancer survivor. I had my tumor removed when I was in the USA. Because of some injuries that I incurred when I was a soldier, I get health care through the Veteran Affairs, through the VA in the USA. So when I'm in the USA, I actually don't have to pay for health care, which is great. However, I still have to travel to the nearest VA hospital. And for me, that was like an hour drive. The type of cancer I had, it requires checkups every year. I have to make that appointment in the USA about a year in advance. Now in Taiwan, I just walked into the nearest clinic. I was seen within a half an hour, and that's signing up and going through the whole process. The equipment they used was better than the equipment that was used in the USA in the hospital I went to. And the doctor spoke English, and the doctor had trained in the USA. So, and the out-of-pocket expense for me was less than $20 US. It was about $15 US. And then it includes some medication that was prescribed to me, all that. It was just, like I said, night and day experience. Incredible.
What strikes you first as special or unusual when you first arrived in Taiwan?
Most of the countries I've been to that have a lot of scooters in their traffic, it's actually, the traffic is very, very loud. There's always horns honking, scooters zipping by, and I would say the traffic in Taiwan isn't great, it's not perfect. But I was surprised at how quiet it was and courteous. I know there has to be plenty of Taiwanese people watching who are like, are you crazy? There's so many loud scooters and loud cars and all that. Look, if you compare it to other countries that use scooters, it's actually not that bad. You know, it's not a cacophony of horns beeping and people yelling, plus the super loud exhaust. It really reminded me of Japan, actually. It reminded me of like a mix of Japan and Thailand, actually. I was also super impressed and surprised by how welcoming and how friendly the people here are. Extremely welcoming, yeah. Many times I felt like a fish out of water, basically. And definitely did not have that feeling here. I felt very welcomed here, and still do.
Hope you continue to enjoy your stay here.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I was struggling to read the Chinese at the vending machine. Random Taiwanese lady stopped out of her day to help me out. It was great.
Yeah.
And her English was great. Thank you.
What do you find mostly challenging to overcome?
It definitely is my lack of Chinese, right? I'm basically illiterate here. You know, I can't speak Chinese at all, basically. So that's probably the biggest challenge, but it's not that difficult. But, you know, I've lived in East Asia and Southeast Asia before, so it's kind of like putting on an old glove or an old jacket or something. Like, I haven't really been surprised. The challenges that I faced in Taiwan, I've already overcome in other countries. So, and Taiwan's actually a really convenient place. So there's not too many challenges that aren't really easy to overcome. I like to view these as like little mini adventures.
If you had to change anything in Taiwan, what would it be?
Something like how Taiwan gets its energy. I think Taiwan is in a great spot in the world where it can harness a lot of renewable energy sources, right? It gets plenty of sun for solar, it has plenty of wind, for the windmills, and it has, it's an island, so it can harness energy from the sea too. And I don't see as much of a green energy initiative in Taiwan as I think it should have. I think Taiwan could be practically energy independent, self-sufficient if it tried. And I think it should try.
Do you have anything else to tell Taiwanese people?
Well, I would have to say thank you so much for being so incredibly welcoming. It's just such a great experience to have. I think that the Taiwanese culture is intriguing. It's a real interesting blend of like Japan and China and other aspects of Southeast Asia that I've seen. And I think that Taiwan should try to export that culture to the English-speaking world more, to the Western world, right? I mean, it's really interesting. And they have really talented musicians and artists, and just try and push that out more. I think the world would really appreciate it. My first knowing anything about Taiwan had to be with its manufacturing, because like the TSMC used to make calculators, and we would see, we would have to buy their calculator, like toys and stuff, you'd see in the toy made in Taiwan. Taiwan has a lot of really great things going for it. Okay. I wish the world could see Taiwan for all its super cool and beautiful and amazing things that it has, its great food, its interesting culture, and not see it only through the lens of the conflict it has with the CCP.
All right, thank you very much, and welcome to Taiwan.
Hey, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.